There was a bride and groom, and they had this. It was around Halloween. They were getting married, and they had this whole theme of like candelabra, dark, and filled the room with candles. So we had found these rentals from a company of reasonably priced candelabras that we thought were a good option, and the venue allowed open flames, so that was a plus. And they had these nice little bulbs that attached to it, and everything looked like it was cool and ready to go. So we get them, and there were about 45 candelabras to put together, and they came completely unassembled, which was fine and completely workable, but we had to kind of rush to put them together. And at the very last moment, when the tables were set, the bread and butter was being put down, we were filling ice water into glasses, the candelabras get set on the table, and I'm prepping and making sure the votives are getting lit, and all of a sudden I hear clink, boom, and I turn and I was like, what was that? And it was the little bulbs that had fallen off the candelabra. And all of a sudden, as people started to move around the tables, you just kept hearing clink, crash, clink, crash, clink, over and over again. And these candelabras were just completely defective. There was no way that these things were staying in. So we had to, so like the whole idea of this wedding was to have this romantic kind of Phantom of the Opera-esque theme, and my theme is getting broken left and right all over tables and destroying like everything. So obviously we had to like come up on the fly and create another option at the last minute.
The little, I've seen the little fake, like it's a little.
They're like little, yeah. They're like
the tiny little LED light or something.
They're like, they get screwed in by like this little rubber knob at the end, and you put a little tea light in, and it makes it go. So we just kind of had to wing it, and I ran all over the property and found as many candles as I possibly could. And I kind of just glued as many tea lights to the lantern as I possibly could, and took votives and kind of made up for it. But as much as we, could find, I had to remove probably half of the candelabras, but use other candles. Thankfully, this venue was chock full of old candles from other weddings. Good. So we were able to kind of, create the ambiance, but it was a little, but yeah, it was tough. It was definitely kind of an on the fly kind of craft a new candelabra idea.
I've started carrying, I have a bag like nuts and screws and super glue,
yes, and
electrical tape,
batteries. There was a moment when the venue didn't have batteries for the microphone, and I had to send somebody to run really quick to CVS to get AA batteries, because the whole venue didn't have one single AA battery, which kind of sucked. But I mean, we got there in time, thankfully, just barely in time. But ever since then, I have an emergency kit that I take with me for every wedding that has every issue that I've ever run into. I have solved.
Is it getting bigger and bigger?
It's getting exponentially bigger, yeah, like much bigger. As the years go on, it's kind of getting bigger and bigger, yeah. But yeah, batteries, don't forget your batteries. With being a planner, you fix constantly, and nobody ever knows the difference. So that's kind of the nature of my job, is to kind of fix and make sure that things happen according to plan. The best part about what I do is to really coordinate between all the vendors and make sure that they work together as a team, because everybody's got their own ideas. And most of the time, I plan and I, go over situations over and over, so there really aren't these huge missteps, but occasionally, it's always a personality thing that you're saving people from, more often than not. And there are crazy things that happen.
In the planning stages,
yeah.
What are some common things that most people just don't think about?
So most people actually don't think about budget, and they don't approach budget the appropriate way, I think. The first instinct for most people is, I need this time of year and I need to get this venue, and that's what they want to do. And they don't really consider all the different factors that go into a wedding budget. And a lot of times people have sticker shock, and it gets really depressing when you have to up your budget by $10, $15, $20,000 sometimes because you made a decision impulsively to book a venue and didn't think through the fact that if it rains, you need to have a tent and spend another $6 or $7 on a backup plan. So I think the most, common thing that people really need to think about and sit down and really dig into is budget for me, because that's the most important thing when it comes to wedding planning as far as I'm concerned. The questions come, how many people, where, what are your expectations, what kind of vendors do you want to hire? And then you have to, sometimes be real and say, listen, this is going to cost $10,000 more than you thought it was going to, or, you really don't need to be spending this much money on a lot of things if you're going to do it this way. So it goes both ways, but there's definitely always a big conversation around pricing for things.
And yes, then sort of like what's important to you.
Yeah.
Like you can spend $20,000 on flowers, but if you're like, oh, aren't the flowers nice?
Yeah.
Why does my meal suck?
Yes. I mean, a lot of people, most people are gonna go for good food right off the bat. And then this, second top choice is good music, I think probably followed by a good photographer. Those priorities are key for a lot of people. I think there are some people who are really passionate about floral. I am one of those people. I spent a lot of money on floral for my own wedding. But, for the most part, a good meal is a solid way to go. And, given the trend and how people kind of approach weddings, it's now really about how a family kind of, you want to entertain your guests. You want your guests to have a good time, and it starts with food. Like everybody wants to eat and drink well at a wedding.
How do you find a good band?
I think you gotta listen to their sets, and I always try to suggest that, especially with a live band, that you go and see them. A lot of these bands play all over, especially if you're in the tri-state area. You can go see these bands on the weekends or on weekdays and kind of check them out and get a good sense of how they vibe. If music is important to you, I think it's a really good idea to just go check them out. Usually they'll comp you tickets to see them if there's a charge, or sometimes there's not. But it's a good idea to kind of get a sense of what they are, because everybody's going to put their best work on their websites. Of
course, yeah.
And it helps, like, for me, I see a lot of bands. So if you're with a planner and you have somebody that you say, this is the style of music that I want, this is kind of the direction we wanted to go in, it makes it a little bit easier to narrow things down, obviously. If you have good recommendations, obviously, like if you've been to somebody's wedding and they have a kick-ass band, like you just book their band.
Swear. Good kick-ass band. And what about, how do you find a DJ? What do you look for when you're trying to find a good DJ, or, just anyone really?
Somebody that you click with, and that with a DJ it's a little bit easier in some respects, and so much more difficult in other respects.
I would think it'd be more difficult because, everyone says, like, these are the songs I want, but...
Yeah. Not every DJ is willing to play the songs that you want, though. So I think if you've, good wedding DJs, they know how to read a crowd. And I always like to suggest, if you've seen somebody that you know, or, you can go kind of see how somebody is live. And, it's hard for couples, I think, to judge from a website. What do you like most about documenting weddings?
The part I enjoy the most is when everyone's just genuinely having a good time.
Yeah.
And I can just roam around and just capture people. And a lot of it, like as I'm roaming through crowds, and people are drinking and just chatting, and I'll catch little snippets of conversation.
Yeah.
That out of context, they're quite often very funny. Yeah. And sometimes I'll stop and just be like, I'm sorry, what?
Yep.
And usually people are like, oh yeah, they're happy to like include you in the conversation for a second.
Yeah. It's always nice when there's joy at a wedding. There's, most of the time it happens. There are times when it doesn't, which is kind of sad and not so fun.
I was at one, it was the second time I've seen a bride essentially kind of ruin her own wedding.
Yeah.
Because she focused on all the wrong things,
yep.
which is like all the stuff. Like,
yep.
Buy a dress you really love, get the flowers you want, get everything else, and then come the wedding day,
yep.
enjoyed it, but if stuff starts gets rained on or ruined or whatever, it's fine because
it is.
all the people you care about are there.
Right.
Just have fun with them.
Yeah. I think for my wedding was kind of a big production. And I obviously do like very small production weddings, very large production weddings, and there's no personalities in between. But when it's you have to let it go. You can't. There's a lot of planning, and I know it's exhausting going into all the details and thinking about every little thing. And having those things fail sucks epically, especially when it rains. But at the end of the day, if you're with the person that you truly care about, that energy that the two of you have and being in love and those people around you being happy for you genuinely, it doesn't matter if you're getting married and everybody's sitting on a milk crate eating, McDonald's, or if you have like Wolfgang Pup catering your affair. Like it's all about the energy of the couple, and that sets the tone for the wedding. And it's so amazing. I just remember my wedding day being the best day of my life because I was so happy that I was marrying my husband, and he was so happy to be marrying me, and it didn't really matter. Like, we had planned a lot of crazy stuff and it was awesome, but that aside, the energy that I love that energy when you have two people who really care about each other and they're so in love, and you can tell, like, that's what makes a good wedding. Like, that love between them and the kind of being able to feel that is better than any amount of DJs or, wedding favors, photo booths that you're gonna get. It's really that energy is priceless.
I read a thing a long time ago that so one of the signs that a couple is gonna like go the distance is when they both feel that it's us against the world.
Yep.
So no matter what happens, you're gonna get through it, and nothing's so bad that you. It's like, and I always say, like, no matter what happens on your wedding day, no matter what goes wrong, so long as you two get married,
it's the only thing.
Everything else, I mean, anything else that goes right on top of that is just like a bonus.
Yeah. If you can step out of yourself and kind of just enjoy the moment, and there's so little time to enjoy the moments on your wedding day. It goes by so quickly. Like, that's one thing I always try to convey to my couples is you try to take those, like, get those moments with your partner and, gentle squeeze the hand, or take 5 minutes before you join cocktail hour or whatever it may be to kind of just be with each other and in the moment, enjoy the moment, because you're not going to get it again forever, really. I mean, this is the one shot.
I had so many people that said, like, afterwards, they give them all their photos and they're like, that time we spent out doing, portraits together was my favorite part of the day.
Yeah.
It's like, because you don't have to be the host.
Yeah.
You're just the two of you. Mm-hmm. And, the way I do things, I'm like, look, go stand over there and just pretend I'm not here.
Yeah.
If I need you to do something else, I'll let you know. But just focus on each other and have a chat. Although I have had to say many times, like, hey, no talking about anything that's gone wrong today.
Yeah.
Don't talk about, the whatever flower was late or whatever it might be, because it shows on your face.
For sure. I think, like, for me, it's so nerve-wracking to be filmed. So, like, me taking my pictures, I actually got really anxious after a while because I just don't like being filmed or photographed.
Did you have to pose a lot?
No. I mean, it was pretty organic, the way my photographer approached it. But I find that with a lot of couples, they're mostly brides, I would say, that there is a lot of anxiety about getting that perfect shot and looking their best and trying. And it's exhausting to take photo after photo, especially when you have a big family. You're doing a lot of those formal photos. It can get really exhausting. So for me, that moment was the second we hit the dance floor, like just our first dance. And first dance always gets me because it's like the moment when you see the couple in it with each other, and you kind of have that like white noise background, and that there's people watching you and around you, but you just have a moment to kind of look into that person's eyes and be able to, be with them and dance and enjoy it, and then just dancing my whole wedding was the best with everybody that I knew and loved. Like, it's the most fun because you can just like let loose and have a good time, no pressure.
I sort of feel like it's not really been a successful wedding if the bride isn't completely disheveled and sweaty by the end of it.
For sure, yeah.
It's
and
like
that's
if you're
why
worried about your dress.
Yeah, Big tip for any bridal, you're putting your hair up, your hair down, you wear extensions because those babies will stay no matter how hard you sweat. You put a couple of extension packs in your head and you're good to go for the rest of the night. You can look refreshed without actually being refreshed. So that's a big tip for brides, wear your extensions.
I did a few months ago a wedding, and this couple had the best time at their wedding.
Yeah.
Like most people enjoy their wedding, but they, at the end of it, when the band was like, all right, last song, and she's like,
we're like bummed out. I know. Yeah, that's the best. I mean, it's always nice. It's, I think it's tough for a DJ and a band to keep a group going. After like an hour and a half, you have to be like really good to keep it going, or you have to have a group that's just like that into it that they want to continue, because it's a long day. So it's always like kind of amazing when you have that, especially as a planner, because like you feel a little bit responsible for that. Like, all right, we did a really good job picking the things that really made these people really happy, and they stayed true to what they wanted and really made their wedding enjoyable for them and everybody around them. So it's always like, that's a really cool feeling when you see them and they're like, oh, they're so excited to like, they don't want to leave, they want to do it again every day.
The bands and the DJs that were like behind, if it's the DJ and he's behind a table with all his stuff, and he's having a good time, usually everybody else is going to be having a good time.
Yeah, for sure. To me, it doesn't make any sense just to find somebody, look at a website and their reviews, and to kind of say, okay, they have 5 stars, like I'll book them. You want to get to know your event. These people are a part of one of the most intimate moments in your life. For example, my husband was really adamant about my photographer. He was like, it's got to be somebody that's going to deal with our friends, and like he's going to be hanging out with us all day, and our friends are kind of a pain in the ass. So we need somebody that's going to be cool enough to hang with our friends. Like, you can't just have, the guy that makes the prettiest pictures in the world. Like, he's got to make really cool pictures that I want to look at, and also be cool to hang out with.
And make sure it's not a bunch of styled shoots that he had all day, and a professional model, and that's why it looks so great. Can he deal with like regular people, like on the go for 8 to 12 hours?
Yeah, I always think it's nice to kind of have to pick vendors that you click with in some way, and that you can kind of like, you want to hang out with. Like, if it wasn't your wedding, would you hang out with this person and go get a drink? Like, that's a good judge of how to like pick something, because you need to vibe with them. Like, because then they're just going to be, if you click with your vendor, like they're just going to be more into doing your wedding. Like, you're going to be happy to have them there, and it just makes a nice dynamic for everybody. So like, it's nice to kind of get to know them and just take some time to understand a little bit how they are and who they are. Is it true when you shoot, it's nice to have a cloudy day on your wedding? I think like everybody says that.
Well, if you have a cloudy day, the light's nice and even, so you don't get you don't get like
boiling sun in your face.
That interrogation light, which is really harsh, and you have horrible shadows under your eye sockets and everything. Yeah. But if it's that the right time of day, I look for little spots of light that are kind of like maybe one shining through the trees, or around a building, or my favorite is if there's a little beam of light reflecting off a window on a building somewhere, and it's like one little spot, because it's just kind of creates a more interesting dynamic. Yeah. Then if it's always flat lighting, then with these little like spots of light, you can kind of create something when there's. It could just be a city street. Yeah. But with the lighting, you can kind of create this whole other feel, and I'm like, go stand in that light.
Yeah. It's always like, it's interesting to me. Like this weekend we were shooting, and I always we were down by the Pearson Park in Terrytown, and it was our bride and groom. It was this beautiful shot, but they had to kind of climb over rocks, and I was panicking the whole time. I was like, please don't let her fall into this ocean. Please don't let the tide just rise like out of nowhere and sweep her and her wedding gown away. Like, let's not have this. And it worked out, and it was unbelievable. Like, I can't wait for these photos. They're going to be amazing. But as a planner, you kind of have like photographers are like, you can just go one more rock. And I'm like, could she? Her Louboutins are going to fall right through the cracks.
I love the people that are like up for that. And I always want to push, but I don't want to push them further than they're willing. Yeah. There was, it was in, Beacon. What's the name of the place?
Oh, there's Roundhouse?
The Roundhouse, yeah. So there's the waterfall. Yeah. but there's the railing that kind of blocks it.
Yep.
And so
Need something down.
there's like a big, cement thing. And I was like trying to convince the bride, like, get up there. And I jumped there, but she was I could see she wanted to do it, but she was nervous about it.
Yeah.
So that's why I kept pushing. I was like, come on, it'll be great. So I jumped up and then helped her up and then helped the groom up. And then, I jumped down and ran off and got a shot. And was at a wedding a few weeks ago. It was a friend of hers. And she brought that up. She's like, that was my favorite shot. And I was like, I could tell you wanted to do it, but you were just a little nervous. She's like, but I'm so glad you pushed me.
Yeah, those shots, like, you got to trust your photographer a little bit and have them. A little bit of pushing is good because then, like, you get these magical photos that, like, nobody else has, right?
But it's also about, make sure it's not a shot just for photographer.
Yeah.
Like you have to constantly have to read people.
Yeah. Like, how far do you want? But, like, see, with photography, I think it's so hard for people on their wedding day to understand, like, what, until they get their wedding photos back. So sometimes, like, what I would hate to have happen is for somebody to not understand what their photographer style is really and just, like, hire somebody because the price point's right. Versus spending the extra couple $1,000s and hiring the person that really inspired them. And then when they get their pictures back, they're like, why didn't it look like this? Or I didn't spend the extra 20 minutes taking pictures because I got tired. Like, I'm missing all these photos, or I didn't make a shot list for my wedding day, which nobody wants to do, but, like, is super important because, like, when you're in the heat of it, like, we don't know that your Aunt Betty is important to you and that you need that shot.
Yeah, not a shot list, a list of shots, but give me a list of people.
People, right? That's
who's
exactly
in your life.
Right. Who are the people that you want to be in a combo formal photo with, or not even a formal photo, but you want to make sure that you get that day. And I think people just assume that photographers know what to do, and for the most part, I think good photographers get it and they can kind of wing it, but a little bit of thought about that would go a long way, because I've had people be super disappointed in their pictures, like, why didn't this person take this very editorial photo that I wanted? Well, because you didn't express that to anybody. Like, so can it happen?
And the other thing is, there might be people that are obviously, like, relatives that are important to you, but every time I pass by them, they don't look miserable, but they're just they're having a very serious conversation about something.
Yeah.
God forbid, politics.
Yeah. Well, lots of wedding politics. Oh my gosh.
Okay, what's the first thing that, like, on the list that's come to you?
Venue. Unless they've booked it already, but venue. Venue is super important to everybody. And, what most people do is they go for venue and they don't think about the cost of everything else. So I always like to take them back a step and talk about the full picture of the wedding, because for a lot of people, food and the space is super important, but there are other things that are important too. So you kind of have to just, hold a beat and think about the full picture of your wedding and those things that are going to be important to you throughout the decision-making process, not just the initial, one, and then, get your budget crushed slowly.
and what, like, when they're choosing a venue, what are things that you make sure that you
think about?
Yeah.
So a lot of people love the idea of getting married outside, which is beautiful, but what they don't think about ahead of time is what happens if it rains. And I know people don't like to think about it, but it becomes such an emergent thing, especially as the day approaches and you're looking at that time. It's such a stressful thing to have to deal with on the fly. So when you're looking for venues, you really want to find a space that can accommodate your guest count, that has a backup built in, because when you have to build a backup and you have to get an extra 10 or you have to spend extra money to kind of create that extra space should something go wrong, it gets really costly, and people don't always think about that. So I would say be mindful of space and really think about it, and think through. The other thing that people do is that they try to jam guests in, and guest experience is a really big deal for people, and they don't realize that thinking that they can shove 10 people at a 6-foot by 30-inch table, and have plates and glassware and centerpieces, and have people feel comfortable, like, they don't think through those things. So you really want to understand space, and how how it's going to work for you and the idea of the layout of the room that you're using, and not to jam people in like sardines, because then no matter how good your band is, how good the food is, people are uncomfortable. As soon as they sit down, it's going to ruin the whole day for them. So space. It's all about the space.
And what about other venue features, I guess?
To have a space where a couple can go and just like escape for 5 minutes, a kind of couple suite or an area where they can just be by themselves for 5 minutes is a nice to have. Another thing to think about when you're booking a venue is to ask them if they have a COI requirement or a certificate of insurance requirement for the vendors, or they have any preferred vendors, because a lot of places are these beautiful, magical places, and then you're limited to the vendors that you can use, and sometimes they're really expensive, and sometimes vendors don't have the insurance requirements, and they need to spend additional money on getting those insurance requirements met, and you've already booked them, and then you end up eating the cost of that. So you want to be aware of what the venue is going to ask of you, because a lot of people don't think through, and then they end up spending a couple $100s just to get their photographer in the venue.
Yeah, I've had to do that.
Yeah.
Like, you've got the venue all squared away. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
The ceilings aren't black.
The ceilings aren't black.
Please don't book a black.
Don't paint your venues with black ceilings, please. Venue and food kind of go hand in hand. Like if they're having a wedding at home and they have their venue, like food is always the first thing, and it's going to cost you the most money. Like food and beverage are going to cost, like they always say on these websites, it's going to be like 18% of your, no way, like not in New York, it's not 18% of your budget in New York, it's like half. So or a good chunk of it most of the time. So for most people, you know, looking at your caterer and understanding what the costs are going to be, most caterers are going to give you a quote for just food, and then you're going to get hit with a staffing quote and then a rental quote on top of it, depending on where you are, especially if you're outside of a proper venue with a kitchen and they have to pop one up and rent all those items. So you want to think about what the rentals are going to actually cost you, because they can add up really quickly when you're buying every plate, every linen, kitchen equipment, serving spoons.
Fork?
Yeah, it costs you money. 200 dessert forks is a couple $100. Like
somebody's got to wash those.
somebody's got to use them. You need them. So caterer is next, and then I think for most people it's split between band and photographer. It really depends on if they're band people, it's usually band first. If they're DJ people, it's sometimes photography.
And what's kind of the average ratio between people that go for band and go for DJ?
But budget really matters. Like I think there's still sort of this very whimsical idea that like a band is so much cooler than a DJ. Like people think, oh, it's like you have a band at your wedding, like because bands are expensive. You have to pay, and they should be. You're paying talented musicians to perform, and they're taking their Saturday nights off and they're coming to play your wedding. So reasonably,
you've got 5 band members, they all want to make it worth their time. So.
For sure. Like if you've got an 8 or 12 piece band, you should expect to pay $7,000 or $10,000, $12,000 for it. These people are professional musicians. It's what they do. So it's a little bit sometimes it breaks down to what you can afford. And not everybody can afford to have a band. It's obviously significantly depends on the DJ, because I've booked DJs that are way more expensive. Celebrity DJs are really expensive, and so is their travel and everything else. So DJs can be incredibly expensive as well, but it's just really all about the vibe that people want. And some people are willing to sacrifice other things to have a live band. They think it's really important.
Well, at the end of the day, it's a party. It's a celebration.
Yeah, you want to party, but I think there are DJs that are super reasonably priced that I've worked with that I would love, like over bands that I've heard that cost 10 times as much as they do. Like it's all about finding the right vendors and finding the right person for you and what you're looking to do. Like there's plenty of very high priced bands that are so disappointing. And people spend all this money on it, and I'm like, oh, if you only knew that you could have hired this DJ for 1/10 of what you paid for this band, and they would have rocked it out, because it's really just all about the vibe and the things that you want. But they're both really good options, and again, like it goes back, I think most of the time it ends up being budget that decides. But some people just want to DJ. Some people just want to hear the songs from the people that, you know, wrote them and produced them. Like I personally, like, I couldn't have my band at my wedding play any kind of reggae or dancehall music because they weren't going to be able to, well, my band might have actually, but you know, it's hard for us to get back some of those things. Like, you want to hear Fetty Wap drop at your wedding. It's some bands like are not going to be able to cover that. Like, it's not going to happen. So you kind of got to decide what the vibe is and what you really want to do and what you really want to have. Photography is a big deal for people. You're capturing the moments. So, and there's a wide range of pricing in photography, and it's one of those things where it's going to cost you, but you have to pay for good work. But I feel like people get sticker shock over photography. Like, they expect the band to be expensive, but they don't expect the photographer to be expensive. You're with that person all day long. You want to take some time, and like that's where you kind of maybe want to put your dollars and spend. There's little things like invitations, paper, the photo booths of the world, things like that, which are just like little extras that you can pay for. But, you know, there's a lot of ways to DIY things, especially nowadays. I mean, Pinterest is a major resource. I had one bride, she made the most exquisite professional looking stationery and invitations that I have ever seen, and I told her she should totally open a business and do it, because they were so, you would never think that she did them herself, but they were so beautiful. I had another couple that built their own arch, and like looked like it was completely and totally professionally done. So there, you know, there's other things, little things that kind of add up here and there, and you know, that kind of leads into decor. And you're either like, I feel like there is no in between. You're either somebody that looks on Pinterest and that comes to me and would say, I want these things, and I say, this is going to cost you $20,000, and you're like, oh my God. Or you're the person that's like, I could just have some whatever flowers, like, it's fine, I just don't want to spend that much money. Like, I find it's very rare to find somebody that's in the middle. You know, most people end up having to settle for a middle ground of floral, because it can get really pricey, and for good reason. Like, flowers are very expensive, and the time it takes to produce some of these things is a lot of work. So floral comes, I think, later for sooner for some people, because I think that's the most important. Like, at my wedding, it was very important to me, but like for a lot of people, I think it comes a little bit later on.
When people are choosing a videographer, photographer, what are some things to look out for? Are there some telltale signs that this person will probably be really good? I mean, you can look at the work and like, everybody likes what they like, but like, then it comes down to personality.
I think so too. I mean, it's a really big deal, like, to click with your photographer and videographer. You want to look at their work and be able to kind of look at a broad spectrum, full albums of weddings. I love when photographers put full albums of weddings, or when a videographer does their, you know, 3-minute reels, and then they put like a 45-minute reel on, so you can kind of see what they can do and show the full scope. Because lots of photographers will take the best 20 photos that they've ever taken and slap it on their website, and then the expectation is to get 700 to 1,000 pictures that look exactly like that, when in fact your 700 pictures that come back most of them are pretty terrible. Like, they're not going to be these epic shots. And I think it's a tough gig, and really there are maybe a handful of really epic shots that come from your wedding day. So you gotta a little bit, I think looking at somebody's full body of work is a really good way to decide, you know, this is a good person for me, or at least the top 50 pictures that they took of the day. It'll give you a better sense of, like, you know, going through 700 photos is quite a lot, but to be able to look at 50 good photos of one wedding, and to be able to showcase that as a photographer, I think is a good thing to look out for. And same thing with videography. You want to see what they can do, but at the end of the day, you gotta click with them. They're gonna be with you all day, literally following you around all day. So
Well, hopefully not following you around, but
Yeah, like creepily just stalking you in the background.
I try to be a little stealthy.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of, if I'm trying to get a shot of someone and I see that they've clocked me, I'll be like, all right, I'll come back around.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, my photographer for my wedding day, I didn't notice him, unless he was doing formals. I never saw him, not once. And I think he sent me 1,300 photos. I did not see him one time. So you want a photography ninja, basically. Somebody that's gonna be like completely stealth and not at all noticeable, because like it's cool when you get like oh my god, he caught that, like this crazy thing that happened. Like,
I once got an email from a bride who I hadn't given her their photos yet, but it was an email that contained all the list of shots that I didn't get, and I was like,
I didn't even send you.
And then I sent her photos. I was like, do you mean all these shots? And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm so sorry. I just didn't see you around, and I was like, well,
Yeah.
that's part of the deal.
Yeah, you're supposed to not be.
You don't want somebody's all up in your face all day.
Yeah, but I mean, reasonably, like, you have to do formals. I mean, most people are going to want formals. Most people are going to want formals. And when you have a big family and a big group, if you have 14 bridesmaids, and you gotta have somebody that can manage it and make it fun. Yeah.
And keep it moving.
Yeah.
Like, don't get fancy with it.
No, just you gotta get it and go, because you have 20, 30 more shots to go.
It's like everybody's wearing suits and heavy dresses, and it's hot, and they're like, I want to go get a cold drink.
Yep.
And sit down, grab some hors d'oeuvres.
Yep. Get it done.
I've been given these like super long, like they've emailed me these super long lists.
Yeah.
And it's like every combination. I can only imagine that they found a magazine somewhere that had this list.
There's lots of magazines.
And I'm
with
like,
those lists.
okay, this is gonna take an hour.
Yeah.
This is an hour of your day.
Yeah.
By the end of this hour, everyone's gonna be pissed off.
Yep.
So why don't we see if we can, all these people, one shot. Mm-hmm. All these people, one shot. Like get it down to like 10 shots.
Yep.
And then if it's really we need some more, then like great, we'll do it. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's your time, but I want to direct you a little bit because I want you to have a good day.
Yeah, it's hard. It's exhausting when you have a lot of shots. It makes the day go.
And then somebody's wandered off, and they need them to come back.
Oh yeah, that's where I come in. Make sure nobody wanders off.
Where are you going?
Wait, where are you going? No, you aren't. You're gonna stay here for 5 more minutes, and then you can go. I will let you know when you can go. But it's hard. It says, and then when you're lining up for announcements or you're doing anything, like people tend to disappear. It's one of the hardest things about my job is keeping track of everybody.
We're like, oh no, I was in a shot. No, we need you for these other 6, but they're all spread out.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep track of people for a wedding day, especially when you have a big bridal party.
Right.
They go missing. Parents, dads tend to get lost a lot. Like dads are always like doing something. I don't know what it is about like dads, people's dads. I don't know what it is. Like I feel like they're always in the bathroom, or they're always like going to do something. Like I can never. There's every wedding. Rest assured, like I'm always missing one dad. It's always the dads. The moms are like into it. They want to see every little second thing. Like they're like, but dads, they tend to
wander off. And
they tend to be like laid back. Like they don't take things so seriously, and they just wander off.
But that's a big part of it. Like, I tell people like make all the plans you want before your wedding day. Like plan it all out, get everything you want, flowers and dresses, and and then come the day, forget it all.
Yeah, you can't.
And just go with it.
Yeah.
If you start stressing out, because
it ruins your whole day.
Yeah.
Like it's nice to have. That's why like I try to be flexible with my clients about trying to offer them day of services, because it's like you really want to have everything go off perfectly, and if you are responsible for doing that, or your family is responsible for it, like it sucks when you have to like have your family like rush and set up chairs or break things down, or it like you don't want that. You just want to like relax and enjoy what you've kind of created. So it's I try to be flexible with the day of, because you gotta just let it go. You can't if you're gonna be worried about like how everybody looks, or all these little details, it's not the part of the day that you need to. It's not what it's about. Like you're gonna miss out on the good stuff.
Yeah. Well, I had one. I did. This is one I shot video for in Costa Rica, and finished the film and delivered to them. And they're like, "Hey, would you mind removing any shots of the best man.
Yeah.
Because
so hard.
it turned out that, well, during his speech, which was a very slow, rambling...
Oh, slow speeches.
I'm like, oh my God. I was like, mate, I'm like, dude, cut it. Sit down.
That's my worst nightmare.
So he found out later that the best man had been asking the staff
Yeah.
where he could buy hard narcotics, is how the groom put it. So
Ow.
I don't know what he was after, but probably like
Coke, whatever.
Coke
Yeah.
or whatever. But like, mate, just hold it together for this one day.
No. People are very selfish. You gotta choose your people wisely. Somebody that's gonna actually care. The speeches. Oh, speeches are like my worst fear. Like maid of honors, best men, I can kind of give them like when there's a father. I had a father of the bride who was just going on and on and on and on, and it was brutal. Like nobody wanted to listen to this. Like it was so hard, and everybody kept trying to give him signals, and I just I froze up. I just didn't know what to. I can't hook him off the stage, for Christ's sake. This man is paying for the wedding. Like it's his daughter's day. Like you don't want to. But that's the toughest thing. I think for me that's the toughest thing is dads who talk too long. Like, oh. Because then you cut into the 20 minutes later, you're like screwing over dessert in the back. You know what I mean?
Like everything's melting.
Literally, like you can't. Like we're gonna have to cut things from this wedding because you're talking too much.
Oh, we could do a whole thing on speeches, couldn't we?
Oh man, speeches! I can sit here for. There are great speeches. Like it's always really cool. Like when people have really like super supportive and like super sweet. And the awkward speeches are the worst. It's so hard when people give drunken, awkward speeches. Like super drunk people too should not be giving speeches. I always tell my best runners, just chill out. Like you can drink your face off as soon as the speech. And I try to push them earlier in the night. Like most people wait. I try to get them done because it's nerve wracking. And like, what do you do when you're nervous? You have a drink to loosen up. And
I've had plenty of people tell me that they didn't eat anything during dinner because they were nervous about the speech.
This is why I try to bang it out before dinner gets served. Always.
Yeah. And get them all done in a row.
Yeah.
Don't spread them out.
Nope. There's no need to spread anything out. Just enjoy the moment of speaking and get it done. Like put food in front of people while they're doing it so they have something to do.
The last thing you want is somebody's giving their speech and then there's waiters like moving around between tables trying to get the next course out.
No.
I did one, and the father of the bride was really into Led Zeppelin. Went and saw them in San Francisco. This is part of the speech. He'd gone to see them in San Francisco back in the 1970, whatever.
Yeah.
And he turns to the DJ and says, "Hit it." He knew this was his moment, and he sung. I can't remember the song, but he sung, and the bride was just dying.
Yeah.
She was just like, oh my. I mean, she was laughing. I mean, he didn't sing well, but it was completely harmless. I mean, like everybody was, rooting for him and everything. But it was just, it's one of these. This is my chance. He's got a
stage. Like, it's not about you people. It's about the couple. Like, just like people just forget that.
Like, don't get up and give a sermon. No, this isn't.
Yeah.
This isn't. Get up, say something nice, sit down.
Yeah. And it's always like kind of awkward when people don't say nice things. Like they dig into the groom or they dig into the bride in like an awkward way, and you're like, it's a wedding day.
Well, the tradition has been to kind of.
You can like poke at them, but I think there's a line you can totally cross.
Like a couple of little jokes at their expense, but nothing embarrassing.
Yeah, you
something
don't
that's mildly
somebody.
Like, oh yeah, that was like mildly, but if they cringe, like you've screwed up.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be that guy.
Don't bring up sex.
Yeah, no.
Don't talk about the bride or the groom having sex with anybody else.
Don't talk about how you didn't like the bride when you first met them, but now they seem okay. Like that's no. Like that's not a good idea. Take it out.
Well, there was a wedding I did years ago, and the best man's up there, and I'm like, no, dude, no. Her parents are there.
Yeah, man. Like that's the worst.
No, the sex talk. Come
yeah,
on.
No. Mm-mm.
And believe me, nobody's laughing.
No.
They're laughing out of like, oh, please
it's
stop.
complete sheer awkwardness. Yeah. Speeches can be that whole tradition can. Like my best man and my maid of honor gave dope speeches. My best man, there's these amazing photos of my husband laughing, crying so hard, like, because his best man speech was amazing. So if they're good, they're really good. But if they're not,
don't look on the internet for your speech.
No, it needs to be heart. It needs to be from the heart.
If you want to,
if you're your best person, like you're a best maid of honor, or
if you're looking for some rough structure, okay.
Yeah.
But I'd literally heard the upper hand joke.
Mm-mm.
I've heard this joke so many times. There was one time I had to stop myself from blurting out the punchline because I was it's awful. And usually it'll be the best man and it'll say, okay, put your hand on top of her hand. Yeah. And then he goes on with the speech and then comes back and says like, oh yeah, now you've still got your hand on her hand. And how does that feel? It's like, okay, great, because this is the last time you'll have the upper hand. It's like...
It's ridiculous.
Like, it's not
the
50s.
Yeah, no.
Come on.
We're past this.
There was one time it was the mother of the bride, and she was standing there giving her speech.
Yeah.
And I think she had 2 pages.
Mm-hmm.
So she finished the first page and placed it down on the table next to her.
Yeah.
On top of one of those little candles.
Oh, yes, I've had stuff set on fire. Did they set on fire?
Well... I was crouched down, and I don't know that anybody else noticed it, but it was at an angle, so it hadn't put it out, hadn't cut off the oxygen, put it out. Mm. But it was like, I was like, oh, yeah, I just gotta go. I just stood up, went over, moved it, and kind of crouched back down where I was. But I'm sure everybody was like, what the hell did he do?
Trying to not burn the place down.
But this is like the stuff no one needs to know about, just...
Yeah, there's lots of that. Lots of little... There's all the little things that you do for people. Like, one of the brides that I had worked with, her aunt was like super nervous about driving home. So I just got her, like, I went to the back of the venue and I printed her like Google Map directions home, and I text messaged her how to get there. And it was the biggest deal to her. It took me 5 seconds, but it was like the biggest deal to her. And it's those little things where you try to make an effort and care about like the people you're working with when you actually care. Like, you do these things and it doesn't, for you it's not a big deal, but for them it's like such a big deal, and it makes like a really big impact on the day, I think, for people when you try to just take those little extra steps that seem meaningless but they're so meaningful. It's always nice to kind of do. One of my partners, this is not my wedding, I'm just going to preface it with that. One of my partners, we were working this venue and she had a group that they were like a little bit of a motley crew and really, really awesome people. And we were like super stoked to do this wedding because like when you do out of the box stuff as a wedding planner, like you get really excited. Like you want to kind of do all the like dark and twisty things. Like I'm really into like less of the pink and pretty. And I like when people get like, they want to do a whole Halloween theme with their like, yeah, like it's fun for me because personally I love Halloween. So that's just me. But so anyway, so there, the groomsmen, tip number 1, first and foremost for everybody out there that's a groom or a groomsman or a bride or bridesmaid, don't get wasted at all before kind of the end of the night. And it was kind of unfortunate that these 2 groomsmen, this group, I mean, they ran out of beer immediately, like for their wedding. Like we had to actually leave the venue and go get more beer because by the end of cocktail hour, they had drank through it all, which was intense. So they were really heavy drinkers, and she had, left for a moment, and she gets this call, you gotta come here really quickly. And the groomsmen had gotten into a fight and had cracked one of the last remaining beer bottles open and shanked another groomsman in the fight. Like this was an intense moment in time, and you don't really think that you're going to have to call the ER, God forbid that Nana or, something happens with somebody that's older, those things happen and they're terrible, but to have groomsmen stabbing each other is quite intense. So, we dealt with it and kind of made it go away really quickly. Well, I wasn't there, but my partner, who's great, that was one of the things we always say, like after that, we can kind of handle anything because at least nobody's getting stabbed at your wedding.